that's the way to do that. Keep our minds straight, because what we're going to do is coming up next week. We got a guest coming in we're going to miss. So this will give us a chance to kind of come back, refocus, clarify, and move forward. All right. We're talking in chapter 12, verses 1 through 6, about the great wonder in heaven, a great sign in heaven. And this is where the woman is to bring forth the child. And we look at that as symbolically meaning about, most people would say, the virgin birth of Christ Jesus, bringing of him into the world, and the persecution of those who did not like him or for which he stood. We've talked about that year in and all about. We're in chapter number 12. Okay. Now let's look at that. The sun and the moon was under her feet. Now, all of these things are symbolic. Is that this woman, this person, the sun, the moon, these two great lights, controlling or guiding certain times of our day. And it simply said that sun and moon under her feet. And there she has a crown of 7 stars on her head. I want us to notice closely now this first crown and the crown belonging to the devil, even though they are mentioned, are 2 distinct Greek words. And they have a part to play in our understanding of what's about to take place and what it signifies. So here's the woman. She has the sun and the moon up under her feet. Let's look at Psalm 136, if you don't mind. She has the sun and the moon under her feet. So in other words, this person is well in tune with God. God is watching over her. She's going to be a tremendous blessing to this earth because she has those 2 great lights. She has before her God's protection and God's insight and God's foresight with her. Sun and the moon under her feet. Now, Psalm 136, let's look at that if I can find it. Psalm 136. What verse am I looking for there, Brandon? 136. You know what I'm looking for? If I can find 136, if I find that, I'd be all right. Don't tell nobody. Boy, I tell you what, my eyes and ears going. Huh? Verse 9? Okay then, okay. Can you read that for us then, if you don't mind? All right. All right, so we got that. So this lady's blessed. God's behind her. Not only are we talking about the ideal of her being empowered, but we're also getting a preview of God's insight and of God's foresight. I want you to also read Psalm 72 and verse number 5 in connection with that. As we talk about this lady, God is working with her, and God's dealing with her as the way that it should be. And symbolism is a tremendous part of the Hebrew genre as far as their writing is concerned. So they understand when they start thinking about all of this that God has her covered. She's completely blessed by God. There's a crown she has, right? And this crown that she has, and she has stars with it, that just go to show exactly how highly regarded she is and highly thought of she is. And not only that, but it talks about her being able to bless those who are coming after her, and in the sense of her progeny going forward. So we have that going, and he opens with that. So John sees that. He quite understands all of that, all about the climate and all about the stars and things like that. So he moves forward. She's a child of travail. So she goes into labor, and then she moves forward, and And that wasn't altogether an easy thing, childbirth. Most of you mothers, you know that's not an easy point in your life. There's a lot of pain. And, of course, symbolically means that, yes, it wasn't easy, but it's going to be a struggle. But things happen, and that's the way it is. Even if among God's children within the church, it's a painful thing for people to develop. Development is painful. I mean, it's painful for the deacons. It's painful for the elders. It's painful for the teachers. It's painful for members. As we try to see the church develop, to come forth, come to full maturity, and to be able to present themselves before God in a good way. Let's look at Galatians chapter 4. Back again, the Jewish people use all of these type of symbolic things to let us know of a true meaning in life. And Galatians chapter 4, Paul even uses this. Galatians 4:19, I think I may mention that. And so if we got this going, it's painful, but it's so rewarding. It is so rewarding. Difficult, child rearing, difficult. Church leading, difficult. Home preparation. All of those things are difficult, and they are not without their own particular trials and pain. But it is worth it all when all things come to fruition. And so here we are now. Paul uses some of these type of symbolism as he talks about the church. Galatians chapter 4, let's look at that if you don't mind. Verse number 19. Galatians 4:19, as he uses it again to talk with us about that. And he simply said, my little children, here's the word again, whom I travailed in birth. Again, right? Whom I travailed in birth again until Christ be formed in you. Can you imagine? It was difficult. It was trying in order to get them to where they were to come into this world. Now it's difficult again. Again, painful, frustrating, in order to see them to not just come into this world, but to have them to grow up into this world and to develop the way God had intended. So it's not an easy task. When you look at the lady who brought him forward, and Paul has he references symbolically, as the church, as he was giving birth, or in other words, going through the birthing pain again, trying to bring them up into maturity the way God had intended, right? So we got a child of travail, gets here, she cries, and then immediately, guess what? It was the devil. Immediately, the serpent. He comes around, and his whole ideal is to do nothing but to stop this child. I think I mentioned last week about that has always been the case, right? Even when Moses was born, even the Bible said that then back in these days there was a king that grew up that did not even know Joseph. And so his point was that I'm going to get rid because I'm afraid of the change of God's people will have upon this kingdom of mine if I continue to allow them to grow, if I continue to allow them to multiply, and if I continue to have them absolutely from the point of presenting a different moral position and stance. So I'm concerned about them. They don't see things the way we see it. They don't do things the way I would do them. They are becoming a threat, not just from a military standpoint, but he was afraid that they will become a threat from a moral standpoint. They have a different moral compass, and he's afraid of them. And so as this person stood before the lady, waiting for her to have the child, his own and sole intent is for the have him and for him to destroy him right on the spot. So that was the case. Even then, he said, hey, from 2 years backward, I want them done and over. I want everybody to take care of them. But thank God, through the providence, his providence, he allowed Moses to stay on. He was hidden for a while, as we talking about going out into the wilderness, Moses was hidden, and so was this child, off in, quote, the wisdom. Another wonder was happening at the same time. Another sign where it was taking place. Got that? She was with child, painful delivery, and the person simply right there wanted to do one thing, that is to devour the child. Who else had that problem in the New Testament? That they were looking for all the young ones so they could do what? Who else, just like this king did, who knew not Joseph, there was another king during the Roman period who didn't care much for God's children neither, right? So he wanted to know, where is this Jesus being born? I want to get to him, and I want to make sure that I do away with him. So that was not in the Old Testament only, but also in the New Testament, to where he was trying to get to this child, as this person is pictured as standing over, waiting for the child to be born. And as soon as he's born, they're going to make sure that this child, of which all of Israel's life, their future is dependent upon this young man who's supposed to come into this world. And you want to make sure that I get all of them, I get all the right one, so let's take care of all of them. So the ideal of it is, she's with child, she made it. Then the dragon, 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns. Now, that's totally different. I think one time we were talking about, she got a crown called Stephanus, right? That's a big crown. Then he got this crown that's up in here. What you want to call that? We sang that, bring forth the royal what? Diadem. Okay, so this is the word for that. So now we come out, he has his own thing. But he has it from the different person. She has a crown from the God of heaven. He has his crown from the God of the earth, right? He has his crown in the wrong way. But he has 7 heads, 10 horns, 2 crowns, 7 heads, 10 horns. Horns are an example, is symbolic of what? We said we need to take the bull by the what? By the horns. Why? Because we want to exert our power over him so that we can have and we can manipulate, have him this to do whatever we choose. So we got horns, powerful people. He has his 7 crowns. So now the dragon comes up. The dragon is ready to fight. He's not only just a dragon, but he's a red dragon. We already talked about the different color horses, the horses, right? We talked about the black, the red, the white, the pale. We talked about all the different colors of that. But it's so significant that he talks about a red dragon, not just a dragon, but a red dragon, which will signify to us that this is a powerful, ever-moving, highly concentrated dragon. And this person has an intent in mind, and that is to do what he wants to do, to wipe out, to govern, and to control, right? He got 7 heads. I'm getting in the middle. We're talking about 7 heads, right? Our mind, his thought, his processes, his strategies, all of those things are at work. He has his crowns. Let's look at Job chapter 29, verse 14. All right. Now, the word head comes from the ideal, helping we to be thinking about us thinking, his ability, his planning. His ideal of it is he just didn't fall off into this leadership role that he has, Jamie. He thought about it, worked through it, and made it that. And when we read history, all of them sat down, they thought about it, they strategized about it, whether it's assassinating one person or assassinating the other. They have always had it in their mind to think, to what we want to call try to connive and do the bad thing. So let's get right there. This guy's 7 heads, and 7 is the number of what? Completeness. So this guy got it all together. The dragon does. He's got all the heads and the thinking. He got this together. He got it all planned out. got all his people in the right places, got his 10 horns, got his 10 crowns. Somebody is going to be leading somebody, and somebody is going to be looking up unto this person as we look up to the woman who has her crown. We're talking totally different things for different reasons. I'm looking at her because I'm thinking about deliverance. They're looking up at this person because they're thinking about domination. Two different things, the reason why they're looking up so much. All right, in the book of Job, if I can get to that, man. And we need to also look at Psalms and the book of Daniel chapter 7, as all of these seem to be of that same genre, of that same ideal of apocalyptic, and the ending and reading and things of that nature. In Job chapter 29:14, someone has that for us? Job 29:14. I'm going to find it in a minute with this Bible. Job 29. Well, here's what we're going to say. Here's Job 29:14, if I can get to it. Boy, I tell you what, that Bible keeps sticking up on me. 29:14. All right. Here's what the Bible says. I put on righteousness, and it's clothed me. My judgment was as a robe and as a diadem. Robe, diadem. This person, she's this, he's that. We're talking about people who's highly regarded, held in high regard. Well, what is going to be for somebody doing on the wrong side? We're going to have somebody be doing something on the right side, because we know that she was a righteous person. So God chose this person, this virgin, to bring forth our Lord. All right? So we got this person here. I want you to read also Psalm 74:14 as well going forward. The devil stood over, ready to do it, as we've said before in Exodus 2:1. And they made sure they want to take him out. Verse number 4. The man-child was then caught up to the throne. So the man-child was eventually caught up to the throne. We got these horns. We got the people there. And here he was. He stood before the woman. A third part of the star was cast to the earth. Now, here's what the problem of it is that people talk about this third part. We've been talking about the ideas of time of measurement, 1/3 and half. Was it actually 1/33 and a third percentage, or was it this? But now this would be different, because we're looking at from I think I remember taking biblical archaeology and things like that at a time or two. And we're talking about the Roman kingdom actually being 3 parts and being 3 of that, and then this split and made a 4th one. So obviously this could be possibly talking about that. But I do know just from history itself, going through that, I had a good class with Brother Richard Curry in biblical archaeology, and then I had a class or two with Brother Billy Smith as we were talking about developing sermon and things like that while I was at Freed-Hardeman. Here's the point. Dragon stood before the woman to devour her. She delivers a son who is to rule. Now, this is seen to be kind of out of shape, because you would be thinking that all of this would be on the line of where she was, how she did it, how he was watching. But there's some little interception, a little interlude up between there. Not necessarily, somebody would simply say chronologically as far as the verses are concerned, to tell about how things are actually going, but we know what took place, right? So it talks about it. We do that from time to time. We talk about a situation, and then sometimes what we do is we skip over a little bit, and then we come back and pick up to where we were. Sometimes you'll find a lot of that off in biblical writing as far as that's concerned. It's not necessarily this, and then come back and do it. He came back later on to do it. But he was right there with her. She delivered, and he's sitting right there, devouring. She goes and delivers a son who is to rule. He was caught up to God. Can you think of a time when the child was caught up to God? Both personally, symbolically. Can you think of a good time of that occurring? We've seen it many times that Jesus, well, right now he's on the right hand of the throne of God, true? There was a time or two that when he went around up there sitting with God, he went up and sitting up around the throne of God, you'll find he with other folks talking. So, but here he said, God's taking him away. He's taking him up to the throne of God. He's doing that. The child caught up to God. And why would that be? You got somebody after him. You got someone looking for him. You got somebody who also got to this point of protection because he needed that, just like Moses' sister, just like this. We have people of protection, and God protected this young son of his, as we were talking about. Called up to God, we simply say symbolically, and not only that, from a substantive point, that he did that after his death, his burial, his resurrection, and his crucifixion. You remember reading in the book of Acts chapter 2, and they were all upset. He said, listen, don't be worrying because this same Jesus, right, who has ascended on up, shall be also the same Jesus who shall also descend. So we want you to know he's not gone forever out of your sight. No, he's going to be there for a while, and guess what? We'll get to enjoy his presence for a long, long time. In that sense, with us, eternity. Any kind of questions, anything so far? I make it as simple as possible as we move forward, and I think it'll do as well. She fled to the wilderness. Man, the wilderness is a great place. Jesus even went there, but she fed there for 3.5 years. Why would you go to a wilderness? They wouldn't understand that because they fled to the wilderness before. God had them wandering around in it for 40 years. They went through the wilderness because they're trying to get to another place. God protected them. So they would understand when they talk about wilderness. She went to the wilderness. Oh, kind of like when the children of God came out of the Egyptian bondage and they were going through that. Yeah. Some of them made it through. Yeah, a lot of them didn't. That's right. So they would get the ideal of it is they got these approaching armies coming right after them at all time. And we'll see later on as we look over in chapter 13 or so about the floods coming and the earth taking care of the floods so that God's children can move. Boy, you see all these kinds of things that they got about their history, letting them know, yes, it's going to be tough. You're going to lose a lot of people. You're going to walk through. Some of it is because of their own, and some of it is because of the Roman government. But we're going to keep marching, Randy. We're going to keep moving, Sister B. We're going to keep doing that because we're all going to get to that land that flowed with milk and honey. We're all going to do it. We just got to keep moving. And I know it's getting a little frightening, disappointing, and discouraging. But you got to keep moving. That man-child is caught up to the throne. And he done that. Fled to the wilderness. Not the only one. They did it all the time. There was a church that stayed out there, Acts 7:38. They call it the church that was in the wilderness. What do you mean? He's preparing them. What's he doing? He's strengthening them. He's getting rid of all the bad so that the good can come forth, so that they could be ready to move on to that land that he's promised them. And that's what we're trying to do, trying to make it to that. Is that not right? Fled to the wilderness, Exodus 7:16. Fled to the wilderness. Notice Isaiah 43:19. We have some of that same language as he talks about them moving forward. And he moves on. Verse 7 of that chapter 12 talks about us moving on. You know what I did with my clicker? Oh, there it is. Thank you very much. Boy, I ain't sharp enough. There was a war in heaven. Somebody said, well, who is the devil? Well, he was an angel in heaven, and God kicked him out. Well, we look at that, the war in heaven between Michael and his angels and the dragon and his angels. What do you mean? Dragon has some angels? Yeah. Michael has some angels? Yes. Boys, the total set for the clash of the good versus the evil. Right versus the wrong, day to night, darkness to sunlight. I tell you, you're talking about a tremendous problem, a tremendous conflict. Right here, a war in heaven. Michael and the archangel. Let's look at the book of Job, if you don't mind. He's mentioned there a time or two. Michael is the archangel. That means he's the chief angel. Now, whether or not they have some rankings, as we will look at it and see, we'll say, well, he's the senior director, or she's the senior coordinator. What are you talking about? You be thinking about senior here and here. But he said, Michael the archangel. He's the king. He's the chief. That's what the word means. He's the arche. He's an angel. All right? It's an archangelo. He's an archangel. He's a person that has his place. Jude, verse number 9. Let's look at that. It's just before Revelation, right? Peter talks about him as well. So here we are. We want to get up in that Jude. If I can find Jude. Boy, y'all going to have to help me on this stuff. Jude 9. I think that's what that is, right? Like what he says. Yet Michael, so it must be real. It wasn't just something fanciful. It wasn't just simply he writing up something and you play about it. This is real stuff. So he come back and simply said, yet Michael, right? The archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses. Does not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, the Lord rebuke thee. Now let's back up. I always said, we used to have a little Plymouth, had to push button backups. It said, likewise also these filthy dreamers defile the flesh, despise dominion, and speak evil of dignities. Yet Michael, so here's the ideal of it. He's the archangel. They're having a battle. Who's going to win? Well, the dragon, as we talked about that person who's coming out against God, this dragon who really want to take out that little innocent born new baby, which is a sad thing. Not even let him see the light of the day very long, or to feel the coolness of the breath that he takes. Great dragon was cast out. And then we got the serpent, the devil. We got one word, the devil, and then we got Satan. He's an accuser. He's cast out. His angels were cast out with him. So the devil had somebody, and with him, all of them cast out of heaven. So what is he trying to get? Are we saying that, wait a minute, we know Michael the archangel is real. Is this the real fight that took place? Or does he have something else also in store for us to think about? And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to go with it simply saying it was the real archangel Mike. Now, is there something else he's trying to tell? Perhaps he is. I haven't just come to that point to where I can really tune in and find that out or not, right? I'm just not into that point that I can say definitively, yes, he is. I'm not at that point. Perhaps you are. Anyone else in the comment about that, Michael and his angels? I don't have a definitive point on that particular point right there if something else was involved. Whether there's an argument, whether there's a fight, definitely. Does that mean something else? I don't know. I don't. But I don't know definitively. The serpent, he's the devil, right? We all know about him. He's a roaring lion, isn't he? Walking about, seeking whom he may devour. The serpent. Who was the first one that caused the problem with man when he created them and put them off in the garden? Who was it? Serpent. It's amazing how this serpent had caused so much problem in life. He was a sign, a symbol of poison, right? He's a sign and symbol of destruction. But yet, who's he got any medical people here in this morning? Medical folk all in their hands all up. We got some good knocks in here. And that's the first thing you see when you start going for healing. Serpent. That's amazing how that take a turn. don't they? The serpent, you see them wrapped around, supposed to be about sign of healing, but we know back then it wasn't about healing, it was about hurting people. So we got the serpent, which is the devil, right? We said he's a snake, low down snake in the grass, we say. The ideal of it is that this serpent has always caused problem, and he simply set this devil like a serpent. He's always inflicted pain on humanity and causes separation. He's caused all of this. No one else but him, right? It's the serpent, the devil. All right, let's look at 2 Corinthians 11:3 right quick. 2 Corinthians 11:3. So we got the serpent. We got one of them. That's his name. What's that word? Diablos. It's the word devil, the Diablos. And we got this idea of Satan. Comes from the Greek word Satanos. It simply means this is a person who is at the wrong side, always accusing, always trying to trip up, trying to cause pain to that which is good and honorable. And that's all he ever does. The serpent. He came in. So God asked the question of the ladies off in the garden. The serpent. Well, he did it. He's always and very, very good at manipulation. Very charismatic. Able to swoon you in with all his verbiage. He can get you to think, get you to see what he wants you to see, get you to understand what he wants you to understand, and to have you to follow what you now seem is clearly the truth. But the devil is like that. He's an adversary. He's an accuser. This is a person who really doesn't care about anybody. What I said, Corinthian? I thought I said that. If I didn't, y'all remember me. What did I say on that one? Yeah, you got that for us? Read that for me if you don't mind. That's the serpent, right? Mm. All right. So the idea, they understood. So when it comes down to the children of his, they understood all of the great things coming along, all of the false Christ who came along, you got false Christ, then you got Antichrist, and they just messed up that to the point they don't know the real Christ. False Christ, Antichrist, they don't even know the real Christ now. They're so confused. And that's the way it was with them going this Roman time. They understood it. They got so many people weighing heavily on their mind. Some people switched from the real Christ. They went over towards everybody who was so anti-Christ, and they went over to this person who was absolutely nothing. And God's children did that over a period of time. So we have to watch that. He's an adversary. 1 Peter 5:8. He's an adversary. He's a person who accuses. He's my enemy. He's not somebody that's for me. People don't always do good things for good reason or good motive. I want you to read also the Michael and his angels in Daniel chapter 10 to get this ideal of him being there and working hard for God's people. We got the book of that. All right, we got Michael and angels. The serpent. And I'm going to type these notes out and I'm going to have them for you. I won't go through all of these scripture references, but I'm going to have it and get that to you. All right. They overcame. Number 11, that's the main part. They overcame. Salvation is the power of Christ. The brethren are accused day and night. That's the part of the devil. That's the part of Satan. That's the part of him. He's an adversary. He's an accuser. In other words, he charges everyone falsely about things. He tried to convict them falsely about everything. Satan was overcome. The brethren are accused day and night. Now, what do you mean by accusing? Well, have you ever been accused of something that you didn't do? Have you ever found out somebody who had been accused of something that you found out later that wasn't? They place something on you, a tag on you. They got their own mark on you, but that's not really the true case. These are not people that are doing something wrong, but they have been falsely, we call, accused of doing something, and that we are this rather than that. Satan was overcome by the blood of the Lamb. So now we're coming to this point of this particular chapter when we start talking about this second coming of Christ, which they would say most people who are premillennialists and some of those who are even post would have prescribed to this, that within these passages built the ideal of it is there's a time when he took over, Christ had to leave, he took out some of his good ones, left the other ones so they can kind of work it out on their own so they can come back and set things up again. This we see a part of this ideal of what they call a rapture. Even where we talked about Jesus being taken up to the throne, had the very same words to be snatching one up. And the ideal they think about this as being part of that. Heaven was to rejoice, but woe to the inhabitants of the earth. But the devil's time is limited. In other words, I'm going to let him loose. He's going to wreak havoc. I've already taken my son up. I already got a good majority of the people with me. Some would say the 144,000 that we've talked about earlier. They're already up with him, so I'm going to leave the others so they can kind of work it out, get stronger, be able to hold on until all these other folks kind of die out a little, and then I'm going to come back again. That's the point they said Jesus would do. And set up this here physical kingdom, and I'm going to root it right here, right now, and get everybody in it, set all things down, and then they're just going to stay here forever and ever. That's the ideal of the millennialist. That's the ideal of that. We don't want that. Heaven to rejoice, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. The heavens doing it. We're talking about the angels involved. Let's look at Ephesians 3:10 for a quick moment. When we talk about that, the principality, and then the woman is chased. She's persecuted. Church, now here's the point. She got two wings. We find about that imagery of God using his people and their wings, put them on, flying them away to safety. So he's supposed to take the woman up as if she had wings to fly away. All right? So there was a song I used to hear all the time on the radio, and the song was simply saying, give me two wings. Give me two wings to fly away. Give me two wings to build my faith. And that was a song. Give me two wings. The ideal of it is that move me on, get me here, fly me on to safety so I can get away from all this trouble, all of these trials, tribulations. So she flew into the wilderness, the woman did. She given two wings, God taking her. We shall mount up like with wings of eagles. And what are we going to do? With the imagery is there, is that we get strong, we move forward, we move away so that we can be where God would have us to be. Doesn't that happen? That does happen. All right. We're talking about wings, power, lift us, wings, carry us, power, but she's in the wilderness. What do you think about that? Put her on wings so that she can move. Let's look at Psalm 136:16. Psalm 136:16. She's being carried away. All right? They've done that a lot. Carried away. Who has that in Psalm? What did I say? I said Psalm what now? 136? All right. Who's going to be doing that? God. The lady was there to get strength. She's there to be renewed, to be reinvigorated, empowered to move on. But that serpent, here he is. The woman was given 2 wings. She's in a great place. She's going to be nourished for 2.5 times. How long that is? Whatever it takes. How long will that be? Till it's completed, until it's needed no more. That's the whole point behind that. She's going to be nourished, and when she's nourished, she'll be able to come out and move forward and keep and continue to walk. Now, the serpent was cast out in water. Now, the last time I heard about it is that he gives an image. If he comes up, he cast out water. His intent is to flood the land and to get rid of the woman. Let's flood it. When the last time we seen a flood? And what did God use to flood? Why did he use it? And what did he say going forward? That he wasn't going to use it again. It won't be water. It'll be what? Fire the next time. God used water before to cleanse the earth. He used water to not only that, but to move the dross. But he also simply said, I'm not going to use that again to harm you. And listen, this guy can come up with all the water he wants. He can do whatever he wants, but nothing's going to be destroyed by that. God has already protected him. And so they got this idea. Oh, it's rough? Yes, he comes with the water and the flood. Yeah, what happened when that happened? Man, they came to the water. God moved the water, walked on dry land, and then when the other folks came in, the water closed them up. So he said the earth even done it. Sometimes, if you look back in the history, before the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, you will find that sometimes those kings themselves, they were not just sitting back, but some of them actually became kind of an alliance with the church in the sense that they kind of allowed them to have their privileges. They protected them to a degree. So that's what we'll talk about. In chapter 13, we'll do that Sunday after. And because we'll need to get to the point to look at the 666. Some people think it's Nero. Some people doing some numeral equation, kind of come up with those particular dates and time and trying to figure out exactly what those dates mean when it comes to letters. And they said it was spelled out Nero. But we'll take a look at that and see who exactly is the 666. Some might be thinking it's our current people who leading us and destroying us and keeping us Christians from really living a good Christian life. But we'll talk about that the next time. I appreciate your participation and patience with me reading these scriptures. I really do. I hope to see you the next time. Thank you.